Good afternoon, and welcome to another edition of My Backstage Pass. My name is Lee Zimmerman, and I'm here with my co-host, Billy Hubbard. And today we have the great pleasure of speaking to, shall I say, the legendary Pam Tillis. Hi, Pam. How are you?
Hi. How are you doing?
Well, we're doing fine. I think legendary is an apt reference for you, considering your many accomplishments in the music business. And
it gives me a little chuckle, but you made it sound nice. And yeah, I've been around a while. I think legendary means when you've outlived several recording formats.
Well,
I started out on vinyl. And now I went to cassettes, and then a brief time on MP3s or whatever those were, and then CDs, and now we're back to vinyl. So there you go. So,
but did you ever do 8 tracks?
No, I didn't.
You avoided the 8 tracks. Okay.
I just didn't. I wasn't up and running yet.
All right. Well, we're going to still refer to you as legendary, despite the fact there are no 8 tracks in your past. It's okay. We'll forgive you for that.
Thank you.
Your new album, or your latest album, I guess it's been out a couple of months, but your latest album, Looking for a Feeling, is it's just fantastic. And you've done a number of albums over the course of your career. But if you don't mind, can you talk a little bit about this particular album and kind of how it was conceived and what the inspiration might have been for it?
I guess maybe in some ways I went a little bit rogue on this one. I don't know. It's a real grab bag of styles, but the main inspiration, I kind of did it before I realized that, how an idea will be floating around out there and people sort of all seem to be it's the zeitgeist. Anyway, there was a moment in time that I think 70s influence, was a lot of people were making music that was inspired by that. A lot of millennials and indie artists and everything. But for me, that was my informative years. Those really were that really was an important time for me in my musical development as an artist.
Mm-hmm.
And Nashville in the 70s, late 70s, was an amazing place to be. All kinds of people were here, and all kinds of people came here to record. And, we had the local boys that actually, a couple of them even went to my high school for a little while, and the Allman Brothers, and then you had people like Neil Young coming to town to record. Anyway, Guy Clark, Rodney Crowell, it was just this incredible. I think one of my favorite quotes, and I think Marshall Chapman said, Nashville in the late 40s was like Paris in the in the 30s, just an incredible time. The Exit-In was a nationally known venue. It's very sad. It just closed this week. I can't believe it. Anyway, so this album was really inspired by that era. And, with my music, it might not be overt, but it's in there. And maybe you can pick up some of the influences.
I was reading that I saw your co-writer. He's a pretty cool dude on your title cut there.
Waylon is.
Payne.
Yeah, no, he's a super cool dude and got a great album. And that's the only song that we've written together. But got time to record the record, and he did a demo of it, and it was so incredible. I'm like, how am I going to ever beat that demo?
Yeah.
We found a good groove on it, and then it just kind of seemed like an apt title for the album.
Yeah.
Well, you're a very prolific writer yourself. You wrote the majority of these songs. And I'm curious about your songwriting process. Is it a matter of saying, I'm going to sit down this morning, I'm going to write a song, or do the ideas just sort of come to you on the fly? How does that work?
Both, any and all of the above. I really don't have a standard. What I end up doing a lot is stockpiling ideas, and I'll kind of, to tell you the truth, if I had any way that seems to be more prevalent than others, it's just I'll go on writing binges, and and I'll keep a little treasure chest of ideas going for a few months, and then I'll just wade into it and see what stands out to me and go for it. So that's, and also nothing like having a record to finish that inspires you.
Right. Little impetus to get it done. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, I personally liked that. I was listening to that song, Better Friends. I thought that was the style. I love that song as well.
Thank you. That I didn't write that one, but I've always tried to record things that if I didn't write them, they felt like they were out of my diary. And I went to see my producer play one night at the 5 Spot in East Nashville, Joe Pisapia, and he played that song, and it just made me cry because I'd had an experience with a friend, just where we kind of lost our way as friends for a while, and that song really hit me hard, and I
had a good vibe. The way you performed it was great. And another favorite of mine, I was surprised that on there with the Gillian Welch and Dark Turd of Mine. I loved your version too. I was playing it for Sarah, my wife, and we were both saying, "Man, that sounds great."
Thank you. We really changed it up from Gillian's version. I changed the time signature on it. I hope she likes it. I haven't talked to her about it, but made it into a waltz, and I love that one. I wanted to do something on the record that kind of was a little nod to my dad and my roots, that little shuffle thing.
Oh yeah.
I'm sorry, Gillian's was a three-quarter time. I turned it into a kind of a shuffle, and that's a fun one.
There's another song on this album, and again, I know you didn't write it, but Dolly 1969. And it kind of reflects what you were speaking about before, having sort of seen this evolution of Nashville, how it's grown. And that song kind of takes us back to the, to the old days, 1969, Dolly Parton, an iconic figure. Again, I know you didn't write it, but what was the story behind that song?
Well, that kind of does tie into even though it's Dolly 1969, I met Dolly, trying to remember what year it would have been. I was about 10 years old, but I would see her much later on. She'd become a bigger star in the early 70s. And the year that Dad won Entertainer of the Year, Dolly was very, she'd become the mega star. Because when I first met her, she was just like, on the Porter Wagner show, she kind of had the token chick singer kind of thing going there, even though it was obvious to most everybody that she was going to be a huge force to be reckoned with. Anyway, so Dolly's always loomed large she's just been a huge influence on me in all kinds of ways. And I found that song and I loved it so much. And it was a little bit of a time travel for me, thinking back to being a young girl and looking up to Dolly and people that I grew up, had the kind of this is not a common way to grow up with all of these
Yeah.
exotic creatures, that were my dad's peers, and just that, wasn't the run of the mill kind of thing. Although my upbringing was very, every now and then we would get to be in the glittering part of Daddy's world, but most of the time it was a pretty normal suburban upbringing. But anyway, I found that song and it blew me away. And I've always had a soft spot in my heart for recitations. I just love them.
Yep.
So check that box.
You and Dolly started out so young.
Oh yeah. But I found out a really interesting thing about that song. So there's an iconic image. If you go to, if you Google images for Dolly, you will, if you listen to the lyrics of that song, you can figure out which picture that is. I mean, it was just an incredible image. And the songwriter, Bob Regan, he told me the story about it. He said that he had a really bad writer's block, and he had it for like a month and he was just freaking out, and he said, so he went in his office one day and sat down and he said, well, I'm just going to write something, just even if it's bad, I don't care. And he said he had that picture on his wall and he just started writing about that picture. And it's exactly what the song says. I've got a picture on my wall. Wow. But here's the crazy, but there's more to the story if you got time for this. This is really fun. So one day I went to the park and I was biking and I just finished the trail. I was coming off the trail, got off my bike, I'm walking the bike to the car, and I hear my name, Pam. I turn around and I don't know this person. He goes, Pam, it's me. Oh God, I'm going to draw a blank. Jim Harrington. And and he said, I said, yeah. He goes, he says, it's Jim Harrington, Pam. He goes, you sang a song on your record about my photo. And for a moment, because I looked at him, I also never go out on into this particular park. I was trying something new, a new place. And so it was really weird seeing him. But here's the deal. My mind just kind of for a moment locked up because I looked at him and I went, well, wait a minute. You are too young to have taken that picture. And I'll let you in on a little secret. They staged it. Oh. So it looks exactly like, I mean, they just made it look exactly like Dolly 1969, but it was Dolly circa 1991.
Well, Dolly has kept her youthful appearance. Well, that's not a stretch.
The point of the story is that Dolly is a time traveler. She is ageless, timeless. But anyway, that song I just thought that just blew me away to find out that it really was in a vintage photo, but they sure did nail it.
That's funny. You of course got your start at a very early age. I think you were 8 years old when you debuted at the Grand Ole Opry, right? 8 years old.
Well, I really debuted in kindergarten. But
in kindergarten, okay. Well, look, 8 years old is
in church. I think I saw you had one funny story. If you get time, don't mind telling us about the what was that one in church? You had
singing in church, yeah.
That was
Tom
Dooley.
That's a whole right. That's a whole other story. But I had a kindergarten teacher that showed up at a show that I was doing at Opryland, and she came backstage and she said, I didn't recognize her because it'd been, how many years? 30,
Yeah.
Whatever. And she goes, well, I'm your 4-year-old kindergarten teacher. And I looked at her and I'm like, well, some kind of dim recollection of her face and we'd all changed, Anyway, she goes, she said, you used to show up at kindergarten every day and say, would you like to hear my new song? Because I grew up
funny.
Right when Daddy was on fire as a songwriter. I was around that, the creative process. And he was always playing a new song around the house or coming in at night after, playing a new demo, whatever. So I started, making up little songs. But Daddy pulled me up on stage at the old Ryman when I was 8 years old. And sometimes I credit that moment with the moment that I got the performing bug,
But what strikes me here, according to Wikipedia, the song that you sang when you made your debut was Tom Dooley, which I think the Kingston Trio did that song.
Yeah,
hang down your head, Tom Dooley. Yeah,
right.
Sorry.
No, I think I sang that in church, and we also sang that on the Porter Wagner show. But the song we sang at the Ryman, Wikipedia doesn't always get it right, but song we sang at the Ryman was a group sing with a bunch of other little kids, and it was Curtis Mayfield's "Amen." Daddy used to do
really?
that. Yeah. So
okay, all right. Yeah. Gotcha. What's interesting, again, getting back to what you were talking about early on here, was the fact that you've really seen Nashville evolve here. And I think it would be interesting to hear your take on how Nashville evolved from, it's the 60s and the 70s to what it is now. What changes you've seen as far as the evolution of the music? Because you are an artist that's able to straddle both worlds. I mean, obviously you have those traditional country roots, but you also fit in very well with this whole trend that is being called Americana. You really kind of fit in both worlds, and be interesting to hear your perspective on that evolution, from country to what we call Americana now.
Well, I guess, everybody's got their own unique take on it. That's those of us that have been here a while. And this is my observation, and you've been doing what you do for a good long while too, is, it seems like the guard changes every 6 years or so, every 6, 7, 8 years.
Yeah, and be about right.
And there'll be a new sound, and there'll be new, and over 10 or 15 years, it seems like the executives change and the record companies consolidate, and, musical chairs with the game board is constantly shifting. And it's interesting to think about, like, the music that Dad grew up with, really simple. Hank Williams, Hank Snow, Lefty Frizzell, Hank Thompson, stars of the early Opry. If you think of Cindy Walker, if you think about those songs and the simplicity of those songs, and then if you think about 90s country compared to today's country, that's how I feel. I feel like my own personal writing leans. It's gotten, I don't know, music. I mean, if you think about rap music too, and hip hop and all that, how songs in a weird way have gotten more wordy.
Yeah.
They've gotten dumbed down in some ways, but I don't know, the songwriting style. Let's start there. I just think it changes radically every deck, the sound, the way people express themselves lyrically. That's kind of the part I care about. The other thing is how. So I think Americana still cherishes and incorporates music. There's all different branches of Americana too, but the branch that I kind of seem to be hanging out on is the one that still really respects an older style of country music.
Good
and
for
that's
you.
not all there is to my music, but it's very much in there. My roots are very obvious, and so that works out nice for me. The other thing that I've seen change is just how, I feel very fortunate that, I can make a living off of my songs. For a good long while, I was in the studio scene here in Nashville, singing commercials and on other people's records and stuff. And just, man, I think with the streaming and everything now, I just think it's hard for these kids to, it's hard to monetize your music and make a living. I don't know. It's odd to me. It just, I don't think song, unless you've got a top 5 record or
right.
a billion streams, you're just not making a lot of money off of your songs. And that's been another just seismic change in the business.
That's one thing I was going to ask Pam is you kind of touched on, a lot of artists friends of ours that listen to this, words of wisdom, and it's really hard to find any, to be honest, any wisdom on, like you said, how these young folks can make it now with all this, the streaming platforms. They kind of find a way, but even people that were not just the young kids, but even people that had, halfway decent careers as writers in Nashville, a lot of people got forced out.
Yeah.
It's been really odd.
Well, you've had your share of success. Your albums have gone platinum. You've won Grammy awards. You've, gotten awards from the CMA. So that's got to be very gratifying, I would think. You've sort of set a standard here for yourself that really seems to endure as well.
Well, I think the thing that I can credit that to is just recording songs that have held up over time. And
right.
I didn't write all my songs, but I had the good sense to record some of the ones I didn't write that have been big records for me. And, you can work a long time off of if your hits are big enough, you can work, you can work decades. And, I've just been really fortunate, and I've always tried to go out there and do a good job. And, you try to carve out a reputation on the road and with, try not to let your fans down. And so I've had some longevity, and I'm really thankful for that. Goes without saying really, but I'll say it anyway.
Yeah, I did see you have you have a tour coming up, or you have several shows coming up this year. So that's good. I was looking to see, hear what you might have. Oh, you got one at the Caverns. That's going to be cool. And I hope that all these. Do you think that COVID is going to affect those, or will it be? My daughter went to Caverns recently, and they had a show where they put circles for everybody, and they were setting out space pretty good. But what do you think about this year?
I'm just staying in the moment, because we'll think something's going to happen, and then it doesn't. So, I'm not counting any chickens before they hatch.
Right.
Just to put it in a country kind of way.
Yeah.
And I just really don't know. Last year we kept saying, in a couple months, and I haven't. I've done the Grand Ole Opry one time and no shows since March.
Yeah.
But, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and then of course the bombing was. Nashville's just had an awful year.
Man, when I think things are going to quiet down for a little while, something else crazy happens. So.
Yeah. Well, I know you love.
Always something. It's always something, right, Billy? It's always something.
Yeah. Well, I know Pam loves gardening and such, so you probably had the best garden ever this past year.
I had a garden for the first time in a long time, because kind of went crazy with it a few years back. Kind of really crazy. And then I just got so busy on the road. I'm like, I can't. Nobody's paying me to farm or garden, you know.
Yeah. Well,
I'm rich in flowers, but that doesn't pay the bills. So anyway, so
you could become a florist. You could become a florist.
Well, you know,
if you're really that good, Miss Tillis. If you are really that good a gardener, let's put it to the test.
I know. I talked to my husband about being a flower farmer, and he said, "Yeah, right. Let me."
Yeah, sure. That tone, yeah.
My wife let me take over her garden this year, so I had this bell of hay that I had since last year. Yeah, and I thought, well, I don't want to waste it. I put it on there to cover everything up, and then anyway, I ended up growing weeds, not weed. I became a weed farmer.
You were growing wheat, Billy? I didn't know you were growing wheat. Where's my batch for my cereal?
Okay, wheat, yeah, that's what I said.
Wheatina.
Wheat, yeah.
Billy,
wheat. Oh, that's very different.
There's a difference between straw and hay, Billy.
Yeah, yeah. She told me.
So I hear.
She said that was my last time.
You're right.
Well,
but so I had a pretty good garden this year, and I was just even eating out of it until we get this pretty harsh freeze, and now everything's frozen. I've got frozen vegetables.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well,
you had like 6 foot of snow over there in Nashville, didn't you? It was just crazy, wasn't it? 6 foot of snow or something?
No.
Oh wait, 6 inches, 4 inches or something.
Yeah, we got about 6 inches. But you know what? It hasn't been. It used to snow when we were kids, but the weather patterns have all changed, so we really don't get this kind of snow anymore. In fact, when I'm done talking with you guys, I'm going to go out and try to breathe some good clear air. But it's beautiful. It's beautiful, and
I love it.
It's heartbreaking for the folks in Texas. Here, we're fine. Yes. Our power is on and everything. I'm watching the news in horror, thinking about people in parts of the country that are just, it's been hard as hell for them. But but we're doing all right here.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully.
So Pam, I'm sorry, Bill, but I have to ask this question. You know, is your life summed up, Miss Tillis, by that great hit single you had, that #1 single, My Vida Loca, My Crazy Life? Does that just sum up your life in general? Is that your theme song?
You know, it probably, yes. Probably is.
I was asking sort of tongue in cheek, but
but you know what? I guess it's kind of crazy because I have I say I spin a lot of plates. I have a lot of interest and a little bit of ADD. Let's go ride bikes. And so I guess it is a little bit crazy. But that's just, I've got a high energy level and I can't help it.
Well, that's what makes life interesting. I mean, and you've had a very interesting and rich career, and we just want to wish you more of the same. When is your next album coming out? I know this one came out not long ago, but what can we expect from you next?
Well, you know, it's probably not a normal thing to do, but I really feel like because we put the record out and then the pandemic hit, I'd really like to, once we get on the road again, I'd really love to share this record a lot more and perform it live, because there's so many songs on here that are so fun to play live.
Yeah.
So I'm going to put off doing anything new till I wear this one out a little bit more. So, you know.
That's a good strategy.
But I'm thinking about it. In the back of my mind, there's always a little back burner that I'm simmering something, you know. So we'll see what happens. Also,
I noticed you do the Grits and Glamour shows with Lori Morgan, right?
Yeah, from time to time. Lori and I toured. We did not exclusively together, but we did a lot of shows every year for about 9 years. And we called that Grits and Glamour. And she grew up in Nashville like me, and we share so much of the same musical heritage. And she's a great singer, and we've had a blast. And then when that tour started getting a little bit long in the tooth, I've done quite a few shows the last couple of years with Susie Boggess and Terry Clark.
Oh, yeah, the Chicks.
And that's been Chicks with Hits, and great fun. So I've enjoyed, for many, many years, you find yourself being the only woman on a bill. You know what I mean? You'd be the token chick, Yeah. And that's changed so much in the last few years. It's been really gratifying to get to work with some of my female peers and people that, we were all too busy to get to know each other very well. And so I've made friends with artists that I was sharing the radio with in the 90s, but didn't really get to know them as people, for another 20 years. It's kind of funny how it worked out, but I've enjoyed it.
Yeah. I'm curious, and maybe we should have talked about this at the beginning, but did your father encourage you? Did he discourage you? Or did he just sort of stand on the sidelines when you decided to make this a career?
At first, he was kind of alarmed because it was, the music business was kind of a tough place for women in his era, and women weren't as respected or not always taken seriously, or I mean, it was just a whole different time, and he just couldn't picture all he knew was he didn't want his daughter to be anywhere near any of the musicians that were half as crazy as his band.
That's a good father.
That's probably a good move, yeah.
Oh my God, he shuddered the thought, right? And but anyway, when he realized that I was not to be discouraged, he tried to help me for a little bit, but we kept butting heads because he kind of saw me. He would play me all these songs that I just. It was like his taste, and very early on we started butting heads creatively. There's just a lot of reasons that I went, if I'm going to do this thing, I've got to be my own person, and I've got to find my own sound. And I just was hard-headed, and then when he saw that I was going to be like that, I think he would act like it would make him mad, or he would act mildly pissed off, but really he was proud of me for doing my thing and sticking to my guns. And he's like, all right, and he stood back and just let me, he says, she'll either make it or she won't. And I'm staying out of the way. So, he was pretty cool about it.
Well, we're really glad that he was. We're glad that he gave you his blessing. And just, again, Pam, congratulations on all your success and for continuing to make good music here throughout the years. It's really a gift. It's really a blessing, and we all appreciate it. So thank you so much.
Timeless artist, really.
Well, that's very kind. Thank you, and look forward to meeting you. And Billy, we'll see you in East Tennessee one of these days. And
good.
Y'all take care.
Come on over.
Yeah, and
come on over.
We appreciate you talking to us, and of course, folks can find you on at pamtillis.com and check
Spotify
out and all the others.
A good place, and Instagram and Facebook. Official music page, Pam Tillis official music page. Those are the best places to look.
Yeah, cool. I'm looking forward to start touring. I hope I can catch up with you soon. Get all this bad COVID behind us. And well, Lee, you want to give us a professional outro?
All right. Well, again, thank you, Pam, for being our guest today, and thank you folks out there for listening. You've been listening to My Backstage Pass. I'm Lee Zimmerman and my co-host Billy Hubbard. We thank you for listening, and we'll be back at you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Pam.
Bye-bye. Thanks, Billy. Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks, Lee. Take care.
Bye-bye.